Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
To the brightness within you, and the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, and welcome to Mindshifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Press 1. That puts you in queue to talk to Michael. Otherwise, I just think you're sitting out there listening. We already have quite a few callers out there this morning, or this afternoon, and we want to welcome you to the show. This is our Memorial Day celebration, 305. Welcome, Michael. Hold on.
Delighted to be here. Wonderful to welcome you all to the show. We are blessed. We are honored to be able to support you over the period of the next hour in the process of learning the tools that we teach. We are so blessed to be able to do what we do. Aside from things being very intense recently, we just finished in a period of 42 days doing 38 workshops, 38 different presentations, along with the radio show, 30 of those 42 days. So it's been pretty intense, and so we're blessing and nurturing ourselves right now. We just went down and got in the ocean and swam for a little bit, laid in the sun. I'm actually in a swimming pool doing the radio show. I love this modern technology. And we're off until tomorrow when we start on all day, 9 to 6, for the next 3 days intensive. And then we'll have another 3 or 4 days where we are doing preparation to start 2 9-day back-to-back Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive. So all systems are go. We're rocking forward, and everything is moving very rapidly and very awesomely with forgiveness around the globe. It's a delight to see the number of support groups that are starting. Congratulations, Carrie, out in Colorado, and Julie out on the West Coast, from one coast to the other. We've got some folks in the Middle East we've been talking with. We hope that they're going to get started with the support group process soon, Mindshifter support, and that we get to thank Carol Guy for providing this space, for assisting us in putting together the opportunity on the Angel Radio Network to do this show 5 days a week and offer you support in learning forgiveness. Jeanie mentions Memorial Day every day because we're committed, and our commitment is to see through the insanity of war and to see how we get brainwashed into thinking it's a good thing and participating, going rah-rah, yay for it, and playing the game of buying into the insanity. And so we're here to put an end to that game on planet Earth because it is just a game. It's one that people have bought into and forgotten how it all started, forgotten how it all got going, and we're here to change it. And how are we going to change it? Well, the game of hostility or fear, that is, if I'm in hostility, if I'm in fear, and I point my finger at you and insist you must be the problem in my life, I just instigated and became a contributor to war. If I insist it must be you, it's not going to be long because it doesn't matter how much you change. You're not going to, by changing, change the output of my mind. And if I stay in my hostility and fear and I keep blaming you, sooner or later it's going to escalate to the point where I think what I need to do is get rid of you. Now, whether getting rid of you means verbally attacking you, which means making war on you verbally, emotionally attacking you, making war on you emotionally, or physically attacking you, doesn't matter. It's all the same. Energetically, it's all the same. The slightest attack is an energetic contribution to war because we live in an energetic world. And when we understand and see life through the principles of energy rather than thinking of physical things as separate, then what we're going to do is we're going to change that dynamic. So how are we going to do it? Well, there's this awesome tool called forgiveness. It has nothing whatsoever to do with what we've been taught through Greek theology, and that is, I'm going to let you off the hook because there's pain happening inside of me. The word forgive in the ancient Aramaic language, the original technology of forgiveness on the earth, means a tool with which I go inside myself and remove the content in my mind and my body that never belonged in my mind and my body. That's called forgiveness. And so we're here to support you in learning forgiveness and going inside yourself if there's hostility or fear. You're not in hostility or fear because anybody did anything. You're in hostility or fear because you have hostility or fear in you. And when you choose to forgive, that is, remove your hostility or fear, what happens is all the dynamics around you change. If you're not familiar with how to do that, the how-to is all available free on our website. And when we travel, our travel workshops are primarily done free. We actually even pay our own expenses so that it's easy to get into people's hands, and that's what we're here to do, is to put the tools of forgiveness into the hands of every mind, heart, and being on planet Earth. So if you're not familiar with that tool, how it works, we invite you to go to our website, www.whyagain.com, and on the right-hand side, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. Go to that link, and you'll see now it's 8 different links that directly relate to starting with the process of forgiveness. You'll see a link to the chapter 24, a new chapter 24 from my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Download it. And you're certainly welcome to download the whole book free as well. That link is there on the home page. You can download the book actually in any one of 5 different languages right now, with a couple of other languages underway. The second link is the actual worksheet. Here's how, if you follow this pattern, to actually carry out the process of forgiveness. Go inside yourself and remove from yourself what never belonged. And what never belonged in a human system? Well, first of all, let's establish what does belong in a human system. And the way that we propose that we do that is just imagine yourself holding a newborn child. And as you hold that newborn child, if you were to describe that newborn child in a single word, what would the descriptor be? What would your word be? And my offering is that everywhere on the planet we've asked this question, and we've asked it of tens of thousands of people. The answer is always some variation on the theme of love. And so as you recognize that human life is the presence of love, that's why everybody answers the same. Everybody's answer for the newborn is love. And in answering that and acknowledging that that's the energy that belongs in a human system, then when we engage in something else, we're functioning in a non-human state. And hostility and fear is what removes or eradicates from our experience our human lives. And so we're looking to reestablish human life firmly and fully in every mind, heart, and being on the earth. So we invite you to participate. The 4th link, 5th link, 6th link, 7th link are all radio shows where we've walked someone through the forgiveness process, step by step. So you've got custom instructions for how to do forgiveness. And each worksheet has a different flavor to it. Each worksheet, you got chocolate and vanilla, and you got all those different flavors. It's a different approach to a different problem, all using the forgiveness worksheet process. So we invite you to jump in, go to the website, download the worksheet, put the pen to the paper. Watch the magic that starts to happen. Jeanie, do we have any callers? Anything happening in the chat room?
No, nobody has their hand up, and I just got disconnected a minute ago, so it took me a minute to get back on. And no questions in the chat room. Dr. Tim and David are both with us.
Welcome, Dr. Tim. Welcome, David. How are you, gentlemen?
Doing beautifully, thank you.
Awesome, Tim. Yesterday you had shared that you had a good support group the other night, and we didn't get back to that conversation. So maybe you can share a little bit about the support group the other night, and hopefully inspire people to begin their own support groups. You don't have to be an expert at these tools. All you have to do is be committed to learning them. And so tell us about the support group the other night, Tim.
Well, it was the lowest census in a long, long time. There were 2 other people plus myself, and it ended up being, as most of those are, just fabulous. We had a chance to do one person work through 2 worksheets, and in the process of working through those 2 worksheets, and the Hydra effect kicked in and had probably 3 or 4 others, but we specified another one for her to work on, and then we had time, so we worked through that as well. And
maybe you want to share what the Hydra effect is for those who are new to the show?
Well, in Greek mythology, the Hydra was a creature that when you cut off its head, multiple heads grew back. So instead of getting rid of the monster, you strengthen it. And so,
or at least you got in touch with deeper parts of it.
Yeah, and my take on that is it's ancient wisdom revealed in Jesus saying things like resist not evil, because that which we resist persists. If I'm going to deny and suppress something, I'm just adding energy to it and hiding it. And as Course in Miracles says, it's great because I'm hiding it in the only place in the universe where I'm guaranteed to have to run into it again and again and again.
Yeah. What a petulant device, the Course says.
Yeah. So as she was doing the worksheet and other issues started to come up, we just had her do what you've coached us to do, which is pull out an extra worksheet and fill in either the emotion that had come up or the interaction or the person, and then we went back later. We had more time, and we actually had a chance to work through 2 worksheets for her. And as so often happens when somebody volunteers and has the courage to put their issues out there and ask questions, it was an identical type of an issue for the other person there, and so he did a parallel worksheet and got to wrestle with and uncover some of his own dynamics on the same issue. It had to do with, not being respected and supported as a child and being made to, by circumstances, having the individual feel that they had to grow up very rapidly and be responsible for things that most people would consider well beyond their years.
The loss of a childhood.
Yeah.
That usually leads to having to process a lot of grief, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Anger, abandonment, grief. So it was very powerful, and again, a lot of people sometimes, I know you've talked about how when you were first getting things going, you would do long workshops where there would be only 1 or 2 people there.
Yep.
And, often people say, well, I can't do a support group because there aren't enough people around. And my offering for your consideration would be, if it's you, that's enough. If it's you and 1 or 2 other people, that's even better. But I have, over the 7 years I've done this, I've had numerous times where there was only 1 other person there. And I've had several times where I was the only one who showed up, and I spent the time watching the videos and doing worksheets, rather than saying, oh, good, nobody's here. I guess I'll just have the night off and go home and watch TV or do whatever. So the commitment to have this evening once a week where I'm doing this work is my commitment to me, and as a nice little bonus, most Tuesdays people thank me for being there and holding the space. But that's just a bonus because I'm getting the benefit of exposing myself to the work again and again, getting the worksheets done, uncovering stuff that I've been carrying around with me, hiding from myself for decades now. And so we had a wonderful time on Tuesday, and we listened to the Lesson 8 from Way of Mastery, where it talks about the thoughts we choose today are sending out ripples which will come back to us, and the effects of the thoughts we choose today will be creating our tomorrows. And
yes.
It was a beautiful lesson, and the worksheets were fabulous, and I can't recommend it too highly.
I'll second that. And, of course, David, having been away from Chicago for a little while, started that support group 8 years ago now, David. I think it's 8 years, isn't it? Time flies when you're having fun. And then when you moved to Heartland, Dr. Tim took over. Thank you, Tim. For those who don't know who Dr. Tim is, Tim's a psychologist in Chicago, Illinois, just out on the east side of Chicago. Pardon me, the west side of Chicago.
Crystal Lake. Northwest, Lake. Up in Crystal Lake.
Northwest, yeah. And so every Tuesday night, there's a group of folks that get together to work with the tools. So if you're up in that direction, connect with Dr. Tim. You can connect with him through the chat room. You connect with him through us. And we'll be delighted to share with you. Your website again, Dr. Tim, is?
cndhcounseling.com.
C&H Counseling. Dr. Tim has several audios and such on, and I think the video or two now, right, on the presentation of the tools and other things that just support people in the process of healing. So awesome. And David, do you have anything to share with us from your long experience in the big city of Chicago and what you did with the support group there? And
pardon me? Okay.
Are you with us, David?
I am.
I can.
Good. Yeah, I think that the points that Tim was making out about doing the work, having a meeting, doing a support group, or having a Mind Shifters group and creating one, what I recommend and invite people to do is that know that the group is for yourself. I started that group because I recognized in order for me to accelerate my process, in order to grasp it, then I needed to be deeply involved in it. And everyone can do it at their own pace. For me, I needed to be connected with a lot of people. The reason that I wanted to be connected with a lot of people, and it always did start out for me anyway, to just be no one. I was the only one that showed up for several weeks. My purpose was for me. And so when I held that base, then the universe did send people to me. I was committed. And through that commitment, well, then it just started. It grew. It's a natural process with it. And the more people that attended and the more people that participated and actually put the pen to the paper, as the expression is given, then the more that I got to learn about myself and express, and there is the growth with all of it. So, go ahead.
Well, there's that wonderful African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, to go together. And you'll remember that when Yeshua sent them out, he didn't send them out one by one. He sent them out two by two. There's a reason for that, because when one plays in one's own mind and works simply on their own, the tendency can be to get into the rationalization and the justification of our own insanity and make up all kinds of stories to make our insanity logical. And, well, I'm only doing this because of what they did, and that's the truth. And so when you live by the African proverb, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Find somebody to work with. Find somebody to support you. And what you'll find is when you're insane, if you're willing. Now, if you're not willing, you're going to go into your rage, your hate, your fear, your whatever the game is, and point it at whoever you're looking at that's showing you where your blockage of truth is. When a really important principle of this work is that when one is in blockage of truth, they hide something from themselves, and what they're hiding is an internalized stress that's creating trauma, pain, and the destruction of their own cellular structure. Now, if that's going on at a cellular level, we can keep it out of sight and pretend, well, it's not happening here. Everything's just fine here. See, I'm doing just great. But what's occurring is one's own structure is being destroyed. And as long as one's in blockage of truth, they can pretend that everything's going just fine, but then, when the slightest disappointment comes, when the slightest, stimulus comes that resonates that blockage of truth, then up comes the defense: hostility, fear, rage, grief, pain, sadness, hurt. And most people, when truth shows up, use the internal stress as a motivator to get rid of the source of the stimulus that shows them their stress, rather than, and there's where attack comes from, there's where war comes from. So rather than going, oh, here I am, that person just gave me the look and up comes my stress, and instead of attacking them, I'm going to stop and go, gee, why is my physiology producing sadness here? Why is my physiology producing rage here? Why is my physiology producing grief here? And I get to look at the part of myself if I rewire myself. And the rewiring we suggest is that if your physiology can produce any form of hostility or fear, then you rewire yourself. Instead of getting rid of the hostility or fear, instead of railing against whoever it is that brings it up for you, you are able to own and go, oh, I have some self-correction to do. Yay, I get to take another load off my own cellular structure and heal on another level. So the game becomes a different game. And as you say, David, when you get to play with a lot of folks, you get to get to see parts of you that have just, perhaps in your bloodline not been available for 1,000 generations. And what we're looking to do is to get in touch with those generations. That story of the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years was not about some old folks in the desert several thousand years ago. That was a story about you and I. The desert is a code word for the unconscious. And when we're unconscious of something going on in us, we draw somebody in to bring that state up in us and give us the opportunity to work through it. And working through it is called forgiveness. Working through it has nothing to do with letting somebody else off the hook because it's in there. It's got to do with going inside yourself and changing the root of your hostility or fear. So that's what we're here to support everybody on the planet in learning. And guess what happens when we get to a critical mass of people who finally go, oh, you mean if I'm in turmoil, if I'm in pain, if I'm in grief, if I'm in loss, that's got something to do with me? Oh, you mean I can change that? Awesome. Now I get relief. I get to remove the stress and strain that is destroying my own cellular structure, and I get to live as the awesome presence of love. That's what we're here to support you in. So if you still have a capacity for any form of hostility or fear, and you're not acquainted with the forgiveness process or you've not engaged, we invite you to engage. We invite you to pick up the tools and put them to work and watch the awesome changes that happen in your life. So, Tim, David, anything else to share? Anything from your perspectives on what we're talking about, the conversation as it currently unfolds?
No, I'm just waiting to see if there's anyone that's called in to make a comment on it.
Excuse me, David, I missed you. Could you say that again?
I said, well, I'd like to check and see if there's any callers out there that have any comments or any questions or thoughts, ideas about what it is that we've just talked about. We put a lot of information out there. One of the things about doing the Mind Shifters group is that it's really easy for me to get caught up in standing up there and doing my spill, and there are other people that are sitting in the group, and my tendency is always to get them active and involved. So if we have some callers, well, then it would be great to hear from them.
So, Jean, do we have anybody? Anything in the chat room or anything?
Everybody's just sitting there listening. Somebody just put their hand up. Awesome. Okay, so Aries says 7. You are on the air. Who do we have?
It's Richard in Ithaca. How is everybody?
Well, hey, Richard, it's good to hear your voice, sir.
So I just wanted to comment because yesterday I happened to drop in to listen, and it was about halfway through or whatever, and you had a person doing a worksheet regarding apparently somebody had railed against her about stuff, and you ended up talking to her about abandonment and stuff like that.
Right.
And it was sort of funny because I had gone through almost the same situation that morning. So I was sitting there going,
no.
Yeah.
Gee, Richard, I thought you'd be finished by now.
Well, the irony of the thing is it was like, here is somebody doing a worksheet for me on air, while I was doing, so I just wanted to comment on how listening in on the show and people doing a worksheet can be very valuable because it may be synchronized as timing of something that's going on in your own life and help you, that person itself. What I'm trying to say is somebody doing a worksheet on air can actually help someone else see what's inside them as well. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that comment.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you soon, and we're still working with Ari on those dates. We haven't heard back from him, so we're hoping to hear shortly to see what the dates are going to be for food, fun, forgiveness, and work projects at Heartland. It looks like those dates are going to change a little bit, and so we're holding the space for that to fall in place. And, of course, as soon as we know what that looks like, we will let you know.
Great.
And was the worksheet that was done yesterday sufficient to take you through that layer for yourself yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I actually felt something shift inside me while I was listening to this person. Literally, it sort of felt like some darkness went and I brightened up. So something inside me, some feeling of abandonment had been triggered myself, and so her talking about that allowed me to release that myself.
Cool. Well, that kind of proves that African proverb, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, doesn't it? And I know that one of the things over the years, the blessings that I've had in doing this work is, and I'm sure everybody that's taught it has had the experience, is that I get to draw people who are going to show me the parts of me that I need to work through. And, of course, if you're going to teach it, you have to learn to process yourself instantly instead of getting lost in the hostility or fear, or you just create more difficulties for yourself. And so the beauty of getting to play with thousands of people, every year is that every one of them's got a piece of your puzzle. And if you want to be really, truly take this work into your world, start a support group, put the tools to work in your life, and watch what happens. You will get to process so much, and it is so awesome and such a blessing that it's not funny. I know, Jeanie, would you share a little bit about what happened for you when you started the support group that you started, and the videos you would be sharing? You've said this a few times before, but it's a good place to put that piece that you realized in your teaching the work when you first started.
I'm not real sure which part you're talking about.
Well, you were talking, I remember you saying how when you were first acquainted with the work, Jeanie, we've been together now for almost 8 years, and about 3 months after we met, she did her first workshop. And immediately, the next week started a support group. And when you were preparing for the lesson you were going to present the next week, what would happen?
Yeah, it never failed. Like if I decide I was going to do, the healing through relationships, and during the week I would face something that fit perfectly with that topic. If I was going to do codependence, then that would pop up. So it got to the point where it was almost like, okay, let's pick a really nice one so something will happen nice this week. Because I always had something come up that I had to deal with before I did the support group, which was perfect, though, because in my support group, it wasn't, yes, I was a facilitator, but I was just one of the group that was there to do my process as well. And so it was perfect that, I could share this is what came up for me, and then they could help process me as I process them.
Yeah, I remember back, several years ago at Heartland, there was a woman that showed up. She had driven from Colorado. How she ever found Heartland, because we're kind of in the boonies, I don't know, but she left Colorado knowing she wanted to get to Heartland, and she was pretty mentally imbalanced. I later learned of her psychiatric history and how much trauma she'd been through in her life literally for decades. Somehow in her little old car, she had this old beat-up car, and showed up at Heartland looking bedraggled, looking like a bag lady, and being in great trauma. And so I went in, and, we sat down, and I offered her some water, and, how did you find your way here? And the phone rang, and I excused myself and said, I'll be right back. And she had just started into her story about her pain, her trauma, what was going on in her world. And, we were maybe 5 minutes into it when the phone rang. And I excused myself. I said, I'll be right back, and, we're here to support you. And when I came back from the phone call, which wasn't more than a minute and a half, she was in her car driving away. And that triggered so much for me. And I ended up, going down. We were in the middle of an intensive. There were about 25 people there. If there's anybody on the show who was at that particular workshop, maybe you'd call and share how that unfolded. But I was the one who ended up on the floor in tears and being supported and breathed by the group. So, yeah, you'll get to face whatever you need to face, and that's the awesome process here. When you get to move out what never belonged, then you're free of it. And so it is pretty cool. And if you really want to learn it, take it on, teach it. It's amazing.
So our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Press 1. That puts you in queue to talk, and we'd love to hear from you.
And so if anybody, if you and I were sitting right now in a room, if we just finished a workshop and covering the topics that we're talking about, would there be something you'd want me to answer for you? Would you have some question? Then what I'm asking you to do is to dial 646-200-4169 and ask the question, because your question is everybody's question, and that's what we're here to do, is to answer everybody's question and to move through to the other side. So if you've got a call, have a question, ask it in the chat room, pick up the phone and call us. Or if you're on the phone, just push 1. Pushing 1 will put you in the queue. Jeanie will know you have a question, a thought for us. And, if what we're saying sounds insane to you, gee, Michael, that's crazy. How could all that work? Then, I'd love to hear your comments. Gently, of course. But I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments. And we'll see if we can help to make it logical to move in the direction of wholeness and healing through that conversation. That's always our commitment and the goal that we hold. So, Jeanie, do we have anything happening?
No, we don't right now.
Well, where is everybody? The questions are what really make it live. But beyond that, of course, there's this game that we non-humans, and when we talk about non-humans, we're talking about anybody that lives without the active presence of love. There's this game that when we're in that non-human state, we play, and the game is somebody else is to blame for what I'm feeling. And so the process that one enters into to do that is called denial. And how denial looks is when you say the words, you made me. You ever said that to somebody? You made me angry. You made me sad. You made me afraid. You hurt me. When you use those words, well, here's what happens. You instruct your mind that it is not allowed to show you that you're responsible for the part of you with which you are causing your hurt. You hide that part, and by hiding that part, you empower it, you strengthen it. So all it takes is the words, you made me, when you're feeling something, to dissociate from the part of your mind that's in need of healing. And when you dissociate from it, all of a sudden, that part of your mind is no longer changeable. That part of your mind becomes fixed, and until you crack open that dissociated state, your mind is going to keep showing you. Every time that part of you fires, it's going to keep showing you that that part of you is caused by someone else. And what the forgiveness process does, and one of the steps in the forgiveness process is called love of truth. Love of truth opens that part of you, starts the opening of it, and then the forgiveness process completes the opening of the part of you that holds your blockage of truth. And as you move through that, then the piece of your mind that keeps generating those feelings over and over and over again, and of course that's the essence of my book, anybody who never learns to go in and crack open the dissociated mind and change the dissociated mind's content lives in blockage of truth and gets to live the title of my book. Gets to live in the why is this happening to me again experience. So when you actually engage the process, and one of the things that scares the hell out of people, quite literally, is that I don't want to look there. I don't want to go there. I want to keep pretending that this is all caused by someone else. And so when you engage in actual forgiveness, you crack open that dissociated mind. And by cracking open the dissociated mind, you get to see the part of you that needs to heal. And guess what happens? The healing is really, from there, very simple. Not necessarily always easy because it requires embracing that hidden part. But when you begin to embrace that hidden part, the result is nothing short of absolutely awesome and so incredibly powerful, because everything that never belonged begins to dissipate and disappear. That's how you disappear it, by being able to own it. And so if there's any part of that conversation that doesn't make sense for you, that you go, well, wait a minute, now that's ridiculous, that you need some support in building the brain cells to understand, then we ask you to pick up the phone, call us, and as you do, we'll be here to support you. And we'll be here to explain just exactly how the process works and how to move out of that dissociated state, how to end the dissociative dynamics in your life. And as you do, life just becomes such an awesome pleasure, such an awesome delight, and a whole new game, one that is unimaginable to the average non-human mind, that is, the non-human who does not have the presence of love. And what happens when you live, there's that old saying that as you sow, you reap. So as you put out an energy into your world, that energy passes through you, and you get to experience the effects of it. The effects of engaging in hostility and fear is that your physiology, as hostility and fear moves through it, your physiology says, ouch. Your cells go pain, they go hurt, they go sadness, they go grief. Oh, my God, this hurts. And some people have never, ever had the experience, but when you start to engage this work, here's what happens. You actually bring forward the energy from your humanness, from your human life, and as you bring that energy forward, and that energy passes through your cells and through your physiology, your cells and your physiology just go, oh, that feels so good. To do something human, to bring this humanness into my physiology is such an awesome experience and such a pleasure and a delight. And people who live in hostility or fear just, it's like it's not even possible. They just can't even imagine what living in delight would feel like. Try it. It's awesome. Of course, you got to be willing to undo what's unlike delight if that's what you've been trained by your culture to live in. It's not an easy process. It's not a Dr. Feel-Good process, but I'm here to assure you that it is absolutely doable. Dr. Tim, David, would either of you gentlemen care to comment on how doable that process is?
Well, it's quite doable. I think it's also important to recognize that I probably spent the first 40 years, maybe 45 years of my life without any clear tools for applying the knowledge that I'm creating my experience and that I'm responsible for my sadness and my hurt and my depression and my anger. For the first 40 years of my life, I was taught everybody else causes this.
Right.
I was even taught for the first several decades of my life, solidly the first two of them anyway, that I was born with, as a sinner, with a defective core that I needed to purge and, pray for forgiveness of. My very nature was evil, etc. So there's a lot of conditioning that I have to work at uncovering. And one of the gifts of this work for me is, especially in the older forms of the worksheet, every time I read it, it peels off another layer of conditioning. It reminds me of the truth that my reality is strictly internal, it's unique to me, and it's created out of my own thoughts. That every time I blame anybody else for my reality, I'm hiding my power, the fact that I actually created it. If I'm in pain, I'm in error. Every painful reality in my mind is changeable if I will but look at it and consciously cancel it. So these statements from the worksheet, every time I do a worksheet, peel off another layer of conditioning, which, as I said, they were pounded into me for 40 years minimum. And the lightness of experience, the ease with which I go through unexpected changes in my routine and my life today compared to 10 or 15 or 20 years ago is mind-boggling. And I shared one about last week where somebody called me and said, oh, by the way, here's a big chunk of work you have to get done by Friday morning, and this is Monday afternoon. And I had this full schedule ahead of me, and I thought, well, that's odd. I'm not sure how that's going to get done. And I'm telling you that even 7 or 8 years ago, that would have turned my week into a tumultuous mess. I would have been racked with anxiety and upset, anger at the other person, guilt about not having the time to do it differently or better, and last week I had next to none of that. And I attribute it directly to the work that I've been doing over the past 7 years in this support group and on my own. And so it is a very demonstrable change in my life for the better.
I hear you loud and clear. I'll second the motion. Been there. Very cool, isn't it? It's just, and the crazy thing is that this understanding, these tools, this technology, and it is clearly, truly a technology, has been around for thousands of years. And it's been just totally and completely, we've been ripped off for it. And we've been ripped off by minds that lived in hostility and fear. And what happens is the mind that lives in hostility or fear can't understand truth, can't comprehend, can't function in relationship to truth, so it functions in relationship to hostility and fear. And so as you go back to those original teachings with a mind connected to love, instead of a mind connected to grief and rage and pain, all of a sudden it just becomes very clear, here's how you do it, here's how you change the whole game. And the whole game is changeable. There is no reason whatsoever in the human realm for any form, any word based in hostility or fear to ever even be uttered. There's just no reason except that it's a way to keep us stuck in that pattern. We actually went to a movie last night which was pretty heavy duty, and it amazed me that this film was rated PG-13. Like, if your child was 13, they should be able to go and watch it. But what came through to me in the movie, first of all, it was pretty disgusting stuff. The movie's called Hunger Games, but it did have a very powerful aspect to it, and that was it showed how people can be brainwashed into insanity and become excited about things that are otherwise, if you were to confront them without the brainwash, are utterly disgusting. And it's basically a story about how, in some futuristic time, the haves were warred against, so there was a rebellion, by the have-nots, and the have-nots, of course, were defeated because they had superior armies and superior weapons. And now they're in the 75th year of what they call the Hunger Games, and the requirement by the haves, and it's great sport. It just goes right back to the Colosseum in Rome, and the sport is that there are 12 districts of basically slaves, people who produce goods and services for the haves. They themselves don't have these things for themselves. They don't have the wealth to do it, but they produce it, and they're kept at a subsistence, a survival level. In ancient England, that was called, the peons. And the peons, having been defeated, there's this requirement for a penance sort of thing, and that is that each of the districts must sacrifice or offer up 2 of their children, 2 of their young people, to compete. So there are 12 districts, there are 24 young people, and these young people have to go and engage in what they call the Hunger Games. And you can just see how the brainwash is done to get people excited about disgusting things, because basically what the Hunger Games are is that 24 kids enter into this competition, and only one of them lives. Everyone else has to be killed. And it's called, an honor to do this, and it's, it's a good thing, and it's, hey, isn't this awesome, and hooray. And so thousands of people are watching on television as these kids slaughter each other, and, there's a cheer, and up goes the hurrah, and the announcer who's, working for the haves, tells, people, how isn't this so great? This is how we heal our pain. I mean, the exact doublespeak, right? Just about straight out of the book 1984 from George Orwell. Such doublespeak, and how this, by offering these young people, by having these young people die for the entertainment of the world, and having the have-nots who watch this and are cheering and hurrahing, and you can see how people can become brainwashed into being excited about disgusting things happening, like killing people. It's kind of like war, how we can tap into and be brainwashed into that and actually believe the insanity that there could be something good in this. And so anyway, it was pretty powerful from that perspective. I lament the children who are being brainwashed through films today to believe that, it used to be the men were the tough guys and the murderers, and but since women have become wealth producers, the women now get the same honor, and that is they get to go kill and be killed, And they're told that that's got something to do with women's liberation, and now women have the right to do that. But actually, it's to do with the old game of you've got to get rid of the wealth producers. And so in this film, the actual heroine, the one who does the most of the killing in order to win or create some of the most, let's say, the exciting kills that get the crowd stirred and everybody going hurrah, it's a woman. And then a new twist to it, because this twist of the woman being the tough guy and the killer is something relatively new. It's like maybe the last 10 or 15 years that they've turned women into that. And now there's a new twist in this film, because now it's not the woman, although she's like the lead, heroine of the whole game, that by being the one who defeats the other kids becomes the winner, but it's she and her partner now, and together they are the heroes who kill. And, it's insane. But it's a good picture of how the insanity develops and how people can be brainwashed into it. So if you breathe and take worksheets, it's a good film to see. Hunger Games. Jeanie, do we have any callers? Anything happening in the chat room? We've got about 10 minutes left.
There is a caller on the line, and there is some discussion in the chat room. Lisa had said that she was going through her hopeless and helpless behavior with some drama and trauma yesterday, and she tried her best to make the cause, but no matter how hard she tried, she knew better. So she said she's in the process of processing herself. And
well, Lisa, we hold the space, and know that whatever you're willing to uncover of your generational dynamics, and I know you've been going for it and cleaning that out and remembering the genetics that you've linked into, that all is up for process. Just know that we're here holding the active space of love for all of that to dissipate, to disappear, and for you to be freed of it. So we're here to support you 100%.
And there is a caller online, and so area code 541, you're on the air.
He's rebelling against me a little, too.
Hey there, young lady. Welcome. That's
all right.
Julie from Oregon.
Right, Bucky's. Everybody can be good and get along together. Yeah.
So, Julie, what do you have to share with us today?
I'm not
Are you
sure
there,
she
Julie?
realizes she's on the air yet.
Hello, Julie. You're on the air. Welcome to the show. Hello, hello. I think she doesn't. She must have turned the other way. So.
That's where every animal is. I always.
Julie, you're on the air.
Julie, you're on the show. Hello, Julie. You're on the show.
I'm going to put her on mute because she's having conversation with somebody or something else there.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so we're down to about 6 minutes. The other conversation in the chat room, there was, and Lisa says thank you. There was some conversation about condemned to suffer by a God that doesn't change. And I said, God doesn't change. God is always the same. God is love. And that any condemnation is cause and effect, that the belief that you should suffer, she says, the belief that you should suffer because God condemned you. And I said that any condemnation is a cause and effect, that people, the law of living says you do thus and so, and the result's going to be this, and the person goes ahead with the action, and then they want to blame God for the result. And
the blame game has been going on for a long, long time, Lisa. And there is,
Sarah is.
Say again?
Sarah's the one that said that.
Okay. So the blame game has been going on for a long time, And, of course, it's, all the way back to the Garden of Eden, it was the woman's fault according to Adam, and it was the woman that God gave him, so it was God's fault. And, of course, Adam or Eve blames the serpent. That's a story about how long the blame game has been going on. So here's the invitation. In order to condemn, there's got to be judgment. I would offer that the Creator has never been anything but the active space of love for you or anybody else. That's all a human story made up by people who are engaging in the blame game, that the Creator has any condemnation whatsoever for you. The Creator is simply the awesome active presence of love. All of the blame comes from inside ourselves. All of the judgment that needs to be forgiven comes from inside ourselves. So if you probably come, as most of us do, from a long line of self-blamers. The Creator is never changing. The Creator is the awesome active state and presence of love that when you open the part of your mind that says, you made me. So this blaming God for it is a way to create a dissociated mind. So now when I'm in pain, I say, God, you made me feel this condemnation, this hurt. I'm being punished by you. And my input is, God has never punished anyone. That's all a fraud made up by humans who are locked into punishment and have to find a way to justify it and make it about the Creator. There's none of that in the Creator. So when you let go of dissociative language, you made me, you come out of denial. You can go back 2,000 years ago and look at the book of James, and in the book of James he says, stop your denial. Because when you use the words, you condemned me, God, you now have just hidden the part of your mind that condemns you. And now you are stuck in your own condemnation, blaming someone else. Our invitation to you is to let go of the denial, to let go of the blame, and to recognize that you were originated as the awesome presence of love. You are designed to live as the awesome active presence of love, and you have absolute full support for that from the Creator. Nothing else from the Creator but that. And so the same stands for us. We're here to support you in that and to let go of your self-blame, your guilt, and your denial, and to move through to the other side. And so I'd support you doing some worksheets where God would be the object of attention, and God has blamed me and condemned me. And what did you want from God? Step 3 in the worksheet would probably be, I wanted just this awesome total embrace of the love of God, and then cancel your need for that. And as you cancel your need from that, you'll come into the part of your mind. You'll come into relationship with the part of your mind that stopped embracing you in love a long time ago, where you gave up your human beingness. And as you reclaim your human beingness, all of that will dissolve, and you'll get to a whole other experience. Our show is complete. At least if you have the time tomorrow and you want to do some processing around that, we'd love for you to call us, and we'll make that our opening conversation tomorrow. Or anybody else who has any similar issues. Yes.
Tomorrow is our Aramaic Friday, so call in on Monday.
Oh, on Monday. On Monday, that's right. Aramaic Fridays tomorrow with Dale Hoffman. Come join us. Bring a stranger to the show. Thank you for being here. Create the best year out of your eternal life. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeanie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyag.com. RAIN.com.